Costa, and I'd like to welcome you to the Black Sheep Experience. Thank you for hanging out with me on the podcast, man. I really genuinely appreciate your presence here, so thanks for hanging out with me. I wanted to jump on and talk to you for a few moments. You know, it's been a bit, and that wasn't the intention for Season 3, the 2021 series of podcasts. I had really hoped that I would be able to post a lot more podcasts than what I have been, but 2021, January, has been a bit challenging. COVID-19 ran through the place of employment where I work, and I was fortunate I didn't contract it, but a lot of people did, and so that caused me to have to work remotely for a little bit there, and that was even more challenging, I think, than what I anticipated. There were good things to that. There were great things that came with that, but it also presented a lot of challenges and made it a little more difficult, or didn't enable me to post podcasts as I had originally intended. You know, those resolutions we start out with at the beginning of the year, who knows how they're going to unfold in some ways. I was able to have a really great conversation with author Nicholas Pearson. If you're not familiar with him, that podcast should be up hopefully late next week. It's a great conversation, and if you don't know much about Nicholas Pearson, I suggest you jump online and find him. Really great individual, and very knowledgeable. He's written several books. He's a teacher. I think you're really going to enjoy that podcast. So, but what I really kind of wanted to talk about today, which was something that came up in that conversation and has come up in many conversations with great guests that I've had on, is trusting your inner knowing, trusting the inner voice. And I think for a lot of us, it's really hard to do that. For most of us, we weren't kind of taught to do that, or perhaps even that inner voice wasn't trustworthy. Albert Einstein said something that I think is just strikingly true. He said, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." And I really, that quote really deeply resonates with me. No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. You know, most of us, so many, I really believe, and probably the majority, go through this existence at a very primitive level of consciousness. They never really expand. They never really open themselves up to messages from the divine or synchronicities from the universe, or activity in the quantum field. I think most people never really evolve their consciousness and their intuition. And I think that's a real limiting way to live. There's a deep inner knowing. There's a deep essence or part of us that is connected to God, that is connected to the energy of the universe, the ether or the quantum field, as some would call it. We have the ability to connect to things that will enable us greater wisdom, greater power, greater knowing, and that deep inner voice that I think can really help guide and lead us through life. You know, in my own mythos, where I believe in Jehovah God and Jesus Christ, the Son of God, and the Holy Spirit, I believe that the Holy Spirit speaks to me, communicates with me, leads and guides me. I also believe that God has granted every single individual at the point of creation, the beginning of time, a deep inner knowing, an intuition that is connected to the energy and the knowing and the knowledge of the universe that surrounds us. Now, for so many of us, that seems a bit intimidating, especially if you come from a Christian perspective. That inner knowing, that intuition, even psychic ability, seems to so many of us the works of the devil, right? But I don't think that's true at all. I believe it's something that God gifted humanity with to help them traverse this life. But we've got to learn how to connect to it. so many of the gifts that God has given to humanity, such as intuition or magic, so many of those things have been stripped away from us by a very oppressive regime. I hate to call it the church, but that's the name that we've labeled it. But throughout history, you've seen the church really seek to suppress mankind. And how has the church done that? Through fear and through stripping away our innate power. And one of those innate abilities that we have is the inner voice, intuition. When was the last time you really went deep within? When was the last time you had an inkling, you had an inner voice, you had an inner word, but you didn't take time to explore it? You didn't take time to sit with it in silence and really allow or give it the opportunity to unfold. Accessing that inner guidance will elevate you mentally and emotionally and spiritually. Within that inner voice, within that deep inner universe that is you, the created one, there lay so many of the answers to the problems that you're facing in this life. There is so much deep wisdom within you, beneath the chaos, or beneath the discombobulated thoughts, the emotions, all the things that really cloud our mind. We're often so deeply clouded by all the events transpiring around us in the world, and I'm talking about things that are kind of outside our microcosm, such as the world pandemic, right? World relations, all the silliness that went on with this election. And then there are the deeper things, or the nearer, the more intimate things, maybe arguments with loved ones, or personal illnesses, or illnesses of family and friends. We just have a lot of stimuli that has a tendency to cloud our deep inner knowing and the intuition that is really resident within us. And so I believe that you and I have to learn to listen to our own inner guidance, our own inner voice. And this takes a little bit of practice, because fear and doubt and other stimuli around us have a tendency to try to drown out that inner voice. And so we have to really learn how to listen to ourselves. We have to learn to listen to the wisdom given to us. And so one of the ways that I found this to really be true is, number one, to know I am psychic. And the reason I say that in that way is because I think it's important for us to verbalize affirmatives about who we really are. We've spent a lot of time, I think, in our lives affirming what we are not, and that has been damaging to some of us. And so we need to begin to affirm what it is that we are. I am psychic. I am intuitive. I am deeply connected to the universe, to the divine. Right? So we come to that place of knowing. We come to that place of acclamation, where we state, this is what I am. So, the declaration. Secondly, the practice. How do you listen? How do you hear this inner voice more clearly? Well, I think that begins with meditation. Sitting in silence. Shutting the world out. The cell phones, the news, even family and friends, right? For a moment, for 15, 20 minutes, whatever it is that you can fit in your day. Sitting in silence and allowing that inner voice an audience. One of the things I found really, really interesting in meditation is the first 5 minutes or so, there's so much noise inside my mind. So many thoughts about so many things that I need to accomplish or need to do, need to be achieved, need to be taken care of, so many problems that need to be solved. I mean, at times it's a bit maddening, and we walk around with that static in our brains. It's nearly impossible for us to think clearly with all the conversations our mind is having with itself. And so for that first 5 minutes or so of meditation, I noticed that my brain is really, really active. But as I sit in silence and let those thoughts fade away, I begin to connect with a much deeper part of who I am. An undeniable essence that seems to be much wiser, that seems to contain a great deal of knowledge. And I allow that inner knowing to expand within me. I allow that inner knowing to be a guide within me. And the more that I give that allowance into my life, the easier it begins to hear. You know, there's an old, I don't know if you call it a story or fable maybe, but it goes this way. There's a grandfather, right, who's a Cherokee Indian, and he's sitting with his grandson on a, I think the way it goes is they're on a mountain or they're in the woods or something like that, right? And so the grandfather says to his grandson, "My son, there's a battle between two wolves inside of us. One is evil. It is anger and jealousy and greed and resentment and fear and jealousy and rage, and it lies to us. And then the other wolf is good, and it's love, joy, peace, kindness, empathy, truth, wisdom." And the boy thought about it for a few moments, and then he said to his grandfather, "Well, which wolf wins?" And the grandfather said, "The one that you feed." And for so many of us, we spend a lot of time feeding the wrong wolf. A more Americanized version of that, I think goes something like this: "There are two beasts within my chest. One is evil, one is blessed. The good I love and the evil I hate, but the one I feed will dominate." That's another version of that with a little bit of rhyme to it. More poetic, I guess. But it's really true. So part of your practice needs to be, what am I feeding these beasts, the beasts within me, right? What am I feeding? Which one am I feeding? Am I constantly pouring news? And there's nothing wrong with being connected and being informed, but too much media is not a good thing, especially in this age when our media is so untrustworthy, no matter what side of the fence you come on or fall upon. Too much media is not good. Too much social media is also pretty dangerous. And then your own self-conversations. You know how many times we have self-conversations that are just not healthy, degrading comments about ourselves, the people we surround ourselves with. I mean, what are we feeding the beings or the beasts or the wolves within us? It's really important that we understand peace matters. That what we intake daily really matters. What we're feeding our heart and mind and spirit with really does matter. And as we begin to feed them properly, as we begin to allow that voice room, when we give that inner voice audience, you're going to realize that you can hear it much more clearly. That the emergencies or the stresses of your life will begin to have answers that arise, synchronicities that point the way. I've been really amazed at the synchronicities that show themselves if you're looking. And I'm not talking about silly things. I'm not talking about, well, that could have happened or could have not. But I mean really profound synchronicities, the subtle synchronicities. if you give them audience. They're everywhere. And so, yeah, that's pretty much it, man. I just wanted to jump on and say to you that one of the things I really struggle with, and if you listen to some of the past podcasts, you'll note that listening to my inner voice, listening to my intuition, listening to my own personal convictions has always really been a struggle for me, because I was constantly told that it couldn't be trusted, that it was even potentially wicked, right? Or demonic, or from the pit of hell itself. And so as I begin to expand and as I begin to evolve and give the inner voice an audience, allow it more influence over, my mind, right? My thinking. I believe it's begin to lead me to more peace and to a pure version of who I truly am. Again, it's been a bit of a struggle because of my past conditioning. But every great tradition, including early Christianity, every great tradition gave a lot of weight to that inner voice. And I think that you and I need to probably begin to expand in that area as well. What do I know deep down to be true? Not the surface stresses, not the surface fears, not the surface reactions, but deep down, what I know to be true. All right, guys, that's it, man. Thanks so much for checking in, man, and hanging out with me for a few moments. Be blessed. If you don't follow the Black Sheep Experience on social media, Facebook and Instagram only, and jump on there, man. Follow. Let me know you listen. And that's it, man. See ya. Done.